Man, this cake is great.
I'm still waiting for this picture.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Let me just check.
I mean, you like trying to fax it through Discord or something?
Um,
Oh, there it is. Okay.
There it is.
Let's see here. I gotta blow this up. Hold on. Enhance. 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 Let's see. So we have a fork here that is covered in stuff because you do not lick your forks clean.
No.
But aside from that, I see a layer of like fudgy chocolate, and then this whipped layer of chocolate, and then another layer of fudgy chocolate, and then more whipped layer of chocolate. And is that like some kind of a nut on the side, or is that?
Yeah, it appears to be like an almonds like particle. It's like I wouldn't even say it's like a shaving. It's like a fragment. It's like an almond fragment.
It looks like somebody went fracking for almonds.
Yeah, it was weird too. There was like this weird like chocolate disc thing, but it wasn't really a disc. It was more of like just like a fragment of like chocolate was in there, just randomly. But I wouldn't even say it's fudge, bro. Like it's more just like a chocolate mousse followed by the cake, then more chocolate mousse, then more cake, and then I think that's it. But
that looks delicious.
It's surprisingly light, which is what I really like about it.
It's very fluffy. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You're listening to episode 36 for the week of August 4th, 2019. I am your host, Drew, and I am joined by The Cake is a Lie, Will.
Dude, I am so full.
Before I suspect our listeners are going to have full insight as to what we're talking about, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to cut a snip of that conversation for the intro. But if you could, please describe to me and to our wonderful following what you just devoured.
Oh my god, it's 810 calories.
Jesus fuck, what?
Yeah, I just consumed 810 calories. No wonder I feel like a bear on its back after raiding a picnic.
Oh my god.
Oh, dude, the amount of ingredients too. This is a little shocking for Whole Foods.
What's in it? Hit me with some.
Let's see. Cane sugar, dextrose, non-fat dry milk, unsalted butter, sunflower lecithin. It's the usual stuff.
But it's all organic, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, not everything from Whole Foods is organic. But
I thought it was for some reason.
No. I mean, a lot of it is, but the first ingredient, interestingly enough, is chocolate cake. Because that's an ingredient. So yeah. In case you're a caveman and you want to know what the first ingredient is, it's going to be chocolate cake. But goddamn, dude. Oh my god, 53 grams of sugar. What have I done?
Well, I mean, you set yourself up for diabetes and a coma is what you've done.
Oh, yeah, I shouldn't have done it. But yeah, man, I'm here. I'm still alive. I'm well, just full.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about not touching this glass of wine now because that might just be a bigger problem.
Yeah, you'll be asleep before the end of the episode.
Yeah, so I'm just going to try and hunker down here and let this thing digest as quickly as possible.
Good call. Good call.
But I'm well, man. What's going on with you?
Man, today, this is a video game podcast, but for some reason we have a couple listeners that actually like hearing me talk about yard work.
Oh, yeah.
So...
Stump vendettas, guy.
Oh, God, no stumps today, but my father has like one of those gigantic hedge trimmers that's on a pole. And we have a couple shrubs that are a little bit tall. They were all getting all kind of crazy and wily and making my life kind of miserable. And I needed to destroy them. So he brought that over, and I trimmed some hedges, I trimmed some shrubs. My father, actually, now that you mention it, did have a vendetta on one of my stumps. There's this one on the side of the house that, like, I'm in the middle of trimming the shrubs, and all of a sudden I see him disappear. I turn around, and he's got a fucking axe, and he's going at the stump in the ground. He didn't even tell me he was going to do this shit.
What an animal.
I look at him, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, don't worry about it. So I go on my merry way. The next thing I know, I hear the fucking Sawzall going at it.
Oh, my God.
He is just... Oh my god, when he gets like laser focused on something, Like, I swear, like, he must dream about, like, all the things in my yard that he doesn't like, that he has no control over because he's not here more than, like, once every week or two.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder if like it's built into our like DNA as like a male to like just have these vendettas, like, and you get into the zone about like yards and like, you know, nature and shit. And you just want to like remove things and clean things up. And
Yeah.
it's always followed by like, like brushing your hands off, like if you have sand on your hands, it's always followed by like that. And then usually like hands on the hips after.
Yep. And you just stand
it's a
there.
classic dad thing.
You got that fucking Superman pose. Like, yeah, I did this shit.
Yeah, it's a big accomplishment.
It is. And you know what, man? Like, just, Nikki was out there. She mowed the lawn while I was doing these hedges today. And, like, the two of us just stop and look outside. And it's like, man, like, we did this. We made this look the way we wanted to. And it's a constant process. It never ends. But it is an immense sense of pride when we're done. Or at least when the end of the day happens.
Yeah, it's very respectable because most people don't get the chance to do things like that. Yeah. And when they do, especially as like a first homeowner, you get that sense of accomplishment because most of the time in your daily life, you're not really like doing shit.
Yeah.
You're like that.
You're doing something for somebody else. You're not doing it for you.
Exactly.
And yeah, you're getting a paycheck, but you're not seeing the end result unless you're like creating and getting paid to create. You're not
correct.
You're not getting that pleasure out of it. So this is definitely something for us. And we got a garden that's been producing a crazy amount of vegetables and tomatoes and zucchinis. And man, we finished. We haven't done anything with the garden today. We finished the shrubs. We finished the lawn, and then I went in and I grabbed a beer. And we got this $25 blow-up pool in the backyard. I thought Nikki was fucking ridiculous for buying this thing, but we both fit in it, and it's awesome. And I kicked back. I had a couple summer ales, and man, life was good.
Dude, I could totally see you just getting like, the garden hose and turning it on and it's kind of like tossing it into the fucking pool, like just sloshing it in there and it's just spilling all everywhere. And you're just like, you just like put your foot down on it. You're like dirty bare foot down on like the garden hose. So it's not like pouring out of the fucking pool. You're like, give it another 15. Don't touch it. Gotta let this thing fill up.
Yeah, that's basically it. Oh, man. Well, we should probably talk about video games at this point.
We probably should.
Thanks, everybody, for hitting that download button. Make sure you're subscribing to the show. If you're not, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, anywhere you find your podcasts. We're there at Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGRPodcast. It's at WDGRPodcast. Check it out, because Will and I have been very active posting stuff this week, and it's only going to continue from here, so... I know the social media's been a little dormant, but we're trying to make changes on that, and
yes.
Hopefully you guys are enjoying the type of content that we're putting on those pages. Of course, if you don't, come on by our Discord room and let us know. There's a link for that in the show notes as well. And finally, Will, if somebody would like to follow you on social media, how can they do so?
Will_gear.
And you can find me at ScionStorm. So thank you again for listening to the show. Let's start out with our usual question of the week. Will, what have you been playing?
Sekiro. I've been struggling to get to it a little bit, but I have been kind of still tackling that same boss, and yes, I have not beat him yet, but it's really just because I haven't really sat down and really hunkered down into playing for like a long period of time. I've been watching a lot of Office, or The Office, so that's been consuming my life and not so much video games, but I'm gonna try and get to Sekiro again tonight, get this guy, melted down. And if not, then hopefully sometime tomorrow. But that is all I've really been up to, man. What about you?
I haven't had a lot of time to game this week. Traffic has been a little rough getting home from work, so I've just been kind of vegetating when I get home. Eat dinner, slouch on the couch for about an hour, and then go to bed. Last night I did some gaming. I think we'll get into that a little bit more in detail later on, but let's see here. I mean, mostly just like some mobile games. There's this tower defense game I play on my phone called Infinite Toad. Infant. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Infant Toad.
It's like I'm gonna type it in the chat.
Okay.
Infinite Toad 2.
Let's take a stab at it here. All right. Let's see. You put it in. Where'd you put it?
Oh, mailbag. Whoops.
Oh,
I've been putting stuff in the wrong spot.
yes, you have, sir.
Oh my goodness. Hey.
Excuse me, sir.
Real life show.
Sir.
Um,
All right. So, infinite.
I'm gonna fix this. Hold on, folks.
Okay.
A toad.
I don't want to look at that picture of the chocolate cake. God damn it.
Sorry. You can delete it.
Yeah, I know it's my own fault. I'm gonna delete it.
What was the other title?
And
I just had something on here that I fucking lost because of my screw
up. Chocolate cake. First ingredient is chocolate cake.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, infinite. Yeah, this is a tough one, man. Infinitoad? Oh, wait a second. Infinitoad. Yeah, Infinitoad 2.
It's basically supposed to be infinite tower defense. Is the gist of it. And it's a free mobile game that has like this ridiculous tech tree. And I was a fan of the first game. I like tower defense games. They're kind of relaxing. They're a little grindy, but I like strategy games, and at its core, a tower defense game can be very strategic. And this guy pulls it off pretty well. So I've been playing that. That's been fun. That's about it.
It still counts. It's something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way to play it on the computer. Using an emulator, BlueStacks. So I've been doing that sometimes. So yeah, there you go. But outside of that, I mean, we really didn't do too much gaming until last night. You want me to dive into that now, or should we push that off?
Let's dive into it, man.
Yeah. So Nikki and I were out running errands yesterday, and we're trying to figure out what to do when we got home. And she just turns to me and she's like, "Hey, let's play some old video games." I'm like, "Yeah."
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. So, I was considering breaking out like the actual systems and that, but most of the games that she likes to play are on like the SNES Mini or the Nintendo Mini. And then my buddy Vin was looking to hang out too. So I'm like, "Hey man, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to just, chill and play some video games." You down? He's like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it." So the three of us sat around and we played stuff on the SNES Mini. We were playing Mario Kart. We were playing we did Contra, Alien Wars, on the regular NES Mini, little Kid Icarus. I'm trying to remember what else. We played so many different games. Pac-Man. I had some like royal like Pac-Man wars with my buddy Vin last night. We're going for high scores. We did Dr. Mario, which this is the first time I ever played competitive like head-to-head Dr. Mario. And when you have it up on a higher difficulty, my God, it is like very intense.
Really?
Oh man, and I love those types of games. Dr. Mario, Tetris, Puzzle Fighter, any kind of like puzzle game where you're dropping stuff from the ceiling. Even like Yoshi's Cookie is a really cool puzzle game. Man, yeah, I don't know why they named it that, but yeah, it just that type of game is just totally up my alley, and yeah.
That sounds fun, man. I'm sure it was. I'm actually kind of jealous I wasn't there, but there's time for that. But I will say I really have not put a lot of time into my SNES Mini, and I don't feel that bad about it because I know I'm going to get to it. But I remember getting that thing like pretty much on release. Lauren got it for me, and we hooked it up. And some of you guys might know the story. We hooked it up for about barely 30 minutes, played Donkey Kong Country or something. Lauren had like an aneurysm, and I had to shut it off. And then ever since then, I don't think I really turned it back on again.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I really wish I've put more time into it than I have. But at the same time, there's so many games that, I really want to put time into that I don't regret kind of splitting it up elsewhere,
Yeah.
But, the minis are kind of an interesting thing because, you put in this package, all these different games, and, they make it kind of convenient. You can plug it in HDMI. But despite the fact that it's supposed to be convenient, like, I still run into issues with connecting it. It's just hilarious because, one of the hurdles that most people have to deal with playing older games is connecting them to their TVs to get the best possible picture, which is actually one of our questions, which we'll get to in a little bit. And for some reason, the NES and the SNES Mini don't communicate with my stereo. So I have a Denon amplifier for my surround sound, and that connects directly to my television through HDMI. And I have 4 HDMI ports on my TV. So I have my set-top box for my television watching. I have my Xbox, and I have my PlayStation, Xbox One, and my PlayStation 4. So all 4 of those HDMI slots are filled. So for me, it just makes sense for me to plug like the SNES Mini or the NES Mini directly into the Denon at that point, because the Denon's already connected to the television. I have an HDMI plug right in the front of the fucking of the amplifier. It would just be so much easier. I don't have to worry about trying to run wires or any of that bullshit. Just plug it in and go. They do not work with the Denon. I don't know why. Just black screen, end of story.
You know what? That doesn't surprise me. Without kind of, talking about one of our later topics now, because this is going to be a pretty big deep dive for us. But I remember when I had my receiver, I had similar issues with certain consoles, just like not kind of like the receiver just wasn't meshing with it at all. And it sounds like you're obviously having that same problem. It is a little bit weird because these are like newer like connections.
Yeah, and the thing that like really confuses the hell out of me is like I could take my Raspberry Pi and plug it into the same spot with the same HDMI cable, and it works fucking fine. RetroPie, boom, done.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense because that thing is basically just a jerry-rigged,
Yeah.
It's jerry-rigged.
Yeah.
You would expect something like that to have an enormous amount of connectivity problems.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Not something that has like, an HDMI hookup.
And a fucking Nintendo seal of approval.
Right. Like, this is official, man. Like, it doesn't get much more official than this. So, yeah, that is surprising.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not surprising, but it is. It's a little bit of both.
Totally. Yeah, I agree 100%. But aside from that, once like I had to unplug my PlayStation 4, I had to get like an extra long USB cable, plugged it in, and once everything was plugged in and working, like it was great. Thank God I bought the controller extensions, because otherwise, we'd all be sitting on the floor in front of the TV, and I have a 65-inch HD TV, and that would not have been a good time. So
no,
yeah, but man, it was nice playing those old games, and just going for a high score. There's something so competitive about just going for a high score, and like me and my buddy Vin were like really getting into it with Pac-Man. And Pac-Man is such a simple game, but is so effective. And the NES version isn't even the best version of Pac-Man. It's like, it's good. It's not great. But once we got into it, man, fucking loved it.
Well, those kind of games really bring people together, and I think that's the charm. I think it's also nice to have like somebody just kind of announce that they want to play some old school games the way that Nikki did.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the secret sauce in terms of how do we break this thing out? When is the right time?
Right.
And you need that voice to just kind of announce it, or you need to be like in a party kind of setting. You need to have multiple people. It's not really something that you're going to load up solo.
Right. And that's, I think, where the power of these mini systems comes. Perhaps the game selection is lacking here or there, but at the end of the day, in most situations, somebody can say, hey, man, let's play Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And you know what? You just go, grab it off the shelf. You got 2 controllers. You got your NES, or Super Nintendo, rather. And you fucking connect it straight to your HD TV, and you're done.
Yep.
And that's it. And that's exactly what they were going for. And I think for the most part, there are of course exceptions. PlayStation Classic didn't work out too well. But, these systems, when they're designed well and they have good games and proper backing behind them, and they're not just a quick cash grab, I think they're absolutely worth every penny.
I agree. And I was actually just recently at my brother-in-law's house, and he had mentioned to me that he picked up like a Nintendo 64, and I was like, oh, wow, like, I didn't get a chance to check it out, but he also picked up some kind of like third-party miniature SNES.
Okay.
And it was basically the equivalent of what we have, but just not the official one. So sure enough, like as I was walking over to it, I could already see that it was just like fake as shit. So I picked it up and it weighed nothing.
Yeah.
None of the actual like, buttons or anything were operational.
Mm-hmm.
It had like a weird fucking shine to it. I was like, dude, where'd you get this thing? And he's like, I got it off, I got it offline, and it has like, I don't know, 200 games on it or something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly it was just somebody who just like took, a similar housing and just, Raspberry Pi'd it or whatever.
Yeah, it's just, Chinese thing. Or maybe it was Raspberry Pi.
Maybe it was.
Somebody maybe 3D printed the case to make it look like a Super Nintendo or whatever, because they have those. You can buy a Raspberry Pi case that looks like, various systems. And they're pretty cool, but at the end of the day, you need to know what you're getting into.
Yes.
So I love the Raspberry Pi. Don't get me wrong. I think it's fucking great. I'm very excited to sit down with the Raspberry Pi 4 once they have a little bit more experience with it, for the emulation scene. I think it's still a little early yet, but I'm going to pick up one of those as soon as I can, as soon as I start seeing some serious progress with it.
Cool.
So, hey, let's hit the mailbag.
Let's do it.
We got a lot of great questions. First of all, thank you to everybody. You guys have been sending in some really just fucking awesome questions these past few weeks. And, I don't even know what to say. There's some great stuff here. Thank you.
I think that, Drew and I had mentioned, off the air that we were surprised that, we were going to have this kind of feedback and these kind of questions. We were expecting just more generic things that were going to get stale kind of quickly. And you guys are keeping it very interesting and challenging.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I definitely feel challenged with our questions every week. And I got to stop and think about them,
Yeah.
So I love it. Let's start out with Vortex, who sent this in late last week. What's your best or most favorite gaming accomplishment? Something you can look back on and go, yeah, I effing did that. Maybe it's a super hard game or a boss or level, or maybe it's something completely different. I have too many, but if I had to choose, it'd be either beating every level of Super Monkey Ball, including the master levels, beating Trauma Center for the DS, it's one of the hardest games I've ever beaten, or beating Metroid 2 on Game Boy when I was a kid without any strategy guide. And to add an opposite twist, do you have a dumbest gaming moment that you can recall? Something funny or just so obvious that you just sat there in shock on how easy or obvious something was? Mine was figuring out I can hit up to enter buildings in Roger Rabbit. I had stopped playing because I couldn't figure out where to go, and when that happened, I almost stopped playing because of how stupid I felt. Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a bold statement to want to stop a game because of how dumb you felt.
It is.
But you know what? I don't know. I don't know if I can relate to that particular one. But what do you think about the first part of the question?
This is really tough to answer because I'm trying to think of like that one game that like I was super proud to beat. Well, I think I've talked about this on the air before. Final Fantasy VII. I put in like a ridiculous amount of time in that game, and I got 3 Master Magics, 3 Master Summon, and 3 Master Command Materias, which basically allowed me to just dominate most enemies. But within that same game, it was pretty difficult to take on Ruby Weapon and Emerald Weapon, and I remember that very fondly, beating both of them. They were not the last boss of the game. They were one of those side bosses. So you kind of had to like save the game before you beat it and then go off and like grind to get to that level. And I fucking did it, and that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's that's one of those games. I was actually going to mention Celeste as being maybe one of your choices.
Oh man, I need to circle back to that because I never beat it. That's a difficult game. That is a great game to share content with on Twitter, because when you get something right on that, holy shit, man! They punish you. Well, it's not punishing, but it's like you got to be precise with every single jump, every single step that you make. It requires like an immense amount of precision. And yeah, when you clear a section, especially the hard ones, it does feel like a huge accomplishment. And then you go through, you land, and then you walk onto the next platform, and you're like, oh fuck, I got to do this again. And it's a whole nother puzzle.
Yeah, I would say, giving this a lot of thought this time, probably any one of the Dark Souls games, even Demon Souls, those games, obviously bring a lot of challenge to the table, and I can definitely think of quite a few bosses, and, pretty much almost every single one of those games I ended up beating on my own with some help from like phantoms and stuff, and I don't want to get into that, but either way, those games are massively hard, and I would say that they're some of my biggest accomplishments in gaming for sure.
Yeah, I can see how those could be, something to celebrate.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like Sekiro. Like it's not as hard, but it's one of those moments where when you fight a boss, it's very victorious, or you feel victorious when you're done, because sometimes it takes many, many, many tries.
Makes sense. Definitely.
Just not as many as Sekiro.
Well, fair enough. Any ideas on your dumbest gaming moment?
Yeah, this one was definitely harder because I couldn't really think of anything as of recent or even so much in the past. But I would say probably any game that's similar to Inside or Limbo, any of those platformers that require a lot of, puzzles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've even had moments in games like Tomb Raider and Uncharted. Any game that has any form of puzzle is probably where I'm gonna like sometimes have like oh my god, you're such a fucking idiot, dude.
Yeah.
Like I've had a lot of those moments, and like you said off air too, like I think we both have a lot of those moments even now, just with like non-puzzle games, and I think a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
But those kinds of games, platforming puzzle games, I would say, stump me the most in order, or like basically where I end up having to look up like a strat like on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, in Inside alone, there was a spot where, you remember towards the end of the game, you had that mine cart that you had to time so that the guys could. You had that platform that you had to trigger that needed like 21 people on it, right?
And that was a tough one.
That mine cart that you had to trigger so that it would land on the ground in front of you. Like I couldn't figure that fucking thing out for the life of me, and it ended up just being something really simple.
Yep.
I had to looked up a video and a walkthrough, and I'm like, oh, that's it.
Yeah, I would say the Swapper was definitely one as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get a chance to play that one together.
Yeah.
I mean, that game is very, very hard, but like there are definitely some simple teleportation puzzles that like I definitely had to look up. And then when I saw how to do it, I was like, dude, what the fuck's wrong with you, man? Like, how did you not figure this out on your own?
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of those aha moments that you end up getting, and it just ends up making you want to just be like, you know what, man, like, I need to like get it together. I need to play some like brain activity games or something. Let me get some like flashcards.
Oh God, Brain Age for the DS. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold off on Joe's question till the end. Let's go to Puxor. If you were forced to learn a single game to speedrun, what would it be? Remember the immense time commitment and how unlikely it is that you get to see the story more than a handful of times.
I mean, I'm such the polar opposite of speedrunning. Like, I really don't get it. I get the challenge behind it in certain games like Mario and platformers, because I guess it probably is kind of fun to see like how quickly you can do it. Man, I don't know. If I was forced to learn a single game of speedrun, I guess it would probably be something definitely not story-based or not heavily story-based, because that just wouldn't be fun, like skipping dialogue and stuff. So I would say, I don't know. I mean, I want to say Mario, but I'm not that big into Mario either. So I think I might need a minute with this one, Drew. What do you got?
Any of the Doom games.
Okay. That's a really good choice, actually.
Because that's something that you can kind of break up a number of different ways, too. You can do, per level. You could do per episode. You could do the game in its entirety. And then you have, Doom. I would say Doom 1 and 2 are probably the best ones for this. But, I mean, even something like the new Doom, the 2016 version of Doom, I think would be a good candidate, too. I don't think Doom 3 would be the best choice, just because that game is really more about atmosphere. And I think that while I'm sure there is a way to speed run it, I don't think it would necessarily make a good game to speed run. So
I would say I don't know, maybe I would go with like Limbo or Inside or any of those platformers. Journey, shit like that is probably games that I would speed run well.
I've seen some videos of people speed running Celeste, and that was just ridiculous.
Yeah, like any game, I think, you definitely have a leg up if it's a game that requires some kind of memory, some memory of like what you're doing, repetitiveness. One game that I technically sped run was probably Metal Gear Rising. Believe it or not, me and Damien, we got really good at that game, and we ended up doing a couple run-throughs. I think like on easy, like we purposely just did it so we could find out like how quickly or how short the game truly was. And that was probably the only occurrence where I sped run a game.
Very cool. Very cool. Puckstar has a couple more questions for us. You're going on an epic quest. Assemble your dream party from all of your favorite video games.
This is a really good one. And hard, too, because I have so many, like, favorite characters and stuff from games.
Yeah.
What do you have for your lineup?
Well, I have to get somebody from Mass Effect, so I think I'd go with Morden from Mass Effect 2, and he was a great character, somebody that very charming. He could be the scientist of the party, and I'm assuming this is like an RPG. Like this is the kind of thing for me in my brain. It would be like an RPG team.
Yeah.
So you have that, and then you need somebody from Final Fantasy, of course. So I could take the cheap way and say Sid, but that doesn't really narrow it down.
He's the most powerful man.
Yeah. I'll go with Ares as the healer of the group.
Okay.
We need a fighter, so Doom Guy.
Great choice.
Let me pick two more, and I think I'll call it at 5. Let's see here. You need like sarcastic guys, so Drake from Uncharted.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm literally looking around at my GameStop right now trying to find something. Guile, because Guile goes with everything.
Yes, he does. My God, is that theme good?
Isn't it?
It's so good. All right, so did you go with 5?
I did 5, yeah, but you could do as many as you like.
I'm going to go with 5, too. Fuck it, why not? Definitely, I'm going to say, I'm going to say Solid Snake over Big Boss. Fans of the series are going to know perhaps why I chose that, or why I had that choice. So Solid Snake, because he's basically like a survival expert. I'm going to go with Asura from Asura's Wrath, just if I need like a beat 'em up kind of guy.
Sure.
I'm going to go with Cloud Strife. Even though that sounds kind of generic, he's just such an awesome character, and I think that he has his flaws and he has his powers as well, and he has magic that he can dole out, so he's kind of like a jack of all trades.
Yeah, I mean, you need to have a character that has flaws in order to have a game, I think, that has depth.
Yes. I would also say Bayonetta.
Okay.
Because she's fast and has like a ton of different things that she can do. And that leaves one more. I'm going to go with... I think I'm going to end up looking around here, too. I would say... I can't go with that. I might have to stick with 4.
That's a well-rounded team, though.
Yeah, I might have to stick with 4 for now, because I don't want to just like cheap it and be like, like Turok guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with 4 because those are just some characters that kind of stick out to me, at the moment.
Honorable mention goes to Gordon Freeman from Half-Life.
Yeah, he's a badass.
Yeah, agreed. We'd love to hear what you guys think. So if you have a team of epic gaming questers, drop us a note in the episode discussion. Let us know who you would pick for your dream team. Great question, Pucks. Thank you for sending that in.
Yes.
Finally, from Puckstar, too often, quote, mature games are just games with gratuitous nudity or violence. What's a game you love with a mature story, in that it's well written or really communicates a nuanced message on par with what you'd expect from other mediums? Of course, you can include games with very little in the way of traditional narrative, like Limbo or Inside, or games that are basically interactive novels, like Doki Doki Literature Club.
I have a solid answer for this one. I'm going to go with Metal Gear Solid 4. Hands down, to me, has like one of the best stories I've experienced in a game. And it's very mature. And it's not violence. I mean, obviously there's some violence in the game. There's some like sort of brief nudity in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
But the backstory on some of the characters is just so in depth and basically has a very mature background to it.
Mhm.
Like you have to be like, I want to say kind of like not really a certain age, but you have to be at like sort of a certain intelligence level to kind of really understand what's being said and portrayed in that game,
Mhm.
which makes it very mature.
Right.
And there's some pretty sensitive stuff in there, like in terms of like, real world issues.
Mm.
So I mean, the whole series covers a lot of that stuff, but I'm definitely going to have to go with MGS4 as
Mhm.
one of the most mature stories I think I've come across.
Um, yeah, I mean, like along the same lines, I would say like the Mass Effect trilogy has a pretty mature story because of the side stories, not so much the overarching, um, game of itself, but like how each character has their own side story, and you get down to some pretty heavy stuff with some of them. Some of the characters are dealing with essentially like genocide or racism on a grand scale, or different things like that. It's just a very interesting take. As a science fiction game, I think it does a pretty good job of pushing the narrative. But I think the game that stood out to me when this question was asked was Papers, Please, which is a PC game, very much an indie game that I cannot recommend enough. And essentially, I think I've spoken about this on the air before, but
You have.
you're kind of doing like this passport mechanic kind of thing where you have all these people that are getting ready to cross the border of this fictional Russian country. It's basically it's supposed to be Russia, but it's not Russia, basically. And your responsibility is to catch spies, catch terrorists, catch drug dealers, catch people that are crossing illegally, and you have to make decisions on whether or not you're going to let this mother in with a starving child or not. And if you don't let them in, maybe you'll get an extra $100 in your paycheck so that you can feed your family tonight.
Uh-huh.
And you're making all these difficult choices, and it becomes more and more difficult to spot the fakes as you go along. But I think it's just a really very effective game on kind of shedding some light into like the whole process of immigration and what goes into it, and where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
So definitely worth checking out. It's something that I would like to circle back and spend a little bit more time to. I've only played a couple hours of the game. I think I need to finish it at some point because it does have an ending, apparently.
Papers, Please. I'm going to remember
Please.
that.
Yeah, let me drop you a link in our chat here to the wiki so you can kind of take a look at it. I think they made a version for the Vita, but other than that, it's going to be computers. Oh, there's an iOS version too if you want to do that. But they do have it on Mac and Windows and Linux.
Interesting.
All right, so let's hit up Joe Donuts here. This is going to take up most of the show. A few months ago, a few months ago, I got a new LG 4K TV, and it doesn't have component or S-video inputs, severely limiting the retro consoles, specifically Saturn, Dreamcast, and Xbox, I can use with it. Either way, the image quality is awful over composite. Have either of you been keeping up in the latest in terms of upscaling? Drew, how's the RetroTink treating you? Is now a good time to pick up a scaler for a 4K TV, or is it better to wait for the next big thing?
So before you roll into this, Drew, I have one quick thing to say, and
Yeah.
Joe's going to remember this conversation.
Uh-huh.
Joe, if you're listening, and I know you will be, hearken this back to our conversation about headsets and headphones, and that's all I'm going to say. This is how long this conversation could end up being, and you'll know exactly what I'm referring to here.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Take the floor, Joe. Drew. I'm sorry. Whoops.
So, Joe, basically dared me to do research for him, which I don't think he realizes may have been a mistake, because now I've gone down this rabbit hole of all these different things that I had forgotten that I wanted.
Talk about a can of worms.
Yeah. So, first of all, with the RetroTink, let me address that first. It is a wonderful device, but I think it's important to understand what it is and what it is not. It is a line doubler. It is a lag reducer. It does not upscale your games. It will not make your composite games look better. It connects to your TV through HDMI, and it will make a Nintendo play without lag, but it will not make the Nintendo look better. So that said, I think it is extremely affordable, and if you have an existing means of getting a component out of your system, like the Xbox, for example, the original Xbox does support component out if you have the cables for it. The RetroTink makes that Xbox look great because you're getting as close. Well, I mean, it's an analog wire, but it's a digital signal, so you're getting good quality out of that. When you're looking at the Saturn and the Dreamcast, that becomes a little bit more difficult. Now, the Dreamcast supports S-Video, so you can use S-Video into the RetroTink, and you'll get pretty good color, pretty good picture out of that as well too. But anytime you're using what they call, composite wires, like your red, yellow, and white wires, at the end of the day, they're just not going to give you the best picture possible, no matter how you're connecting it to your television. It's just not possible. So now we kind of look at this in two different ways. If you're looking for crispness and you want a 30-year-old video game to look like it's a 4K game, that can happen. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but there's really two main ways of doing it. You need to find a way to get HDMI out of the system, or something called SCART, which is not really too popular in the United States unless you're like into this sort of thing. But it's more of a European connection. But basically, it's RGB out. And that's going to be the closest, most pure picture that you can get. And SCART cables and modding your systems to support SCART can get very, very expensive. And you might have to help me keep on track with this, Will, because I'm going to be kind of going all over the place.
That's fine.
You have other devices, too, that can translate the signal either from a RetroTink or from a SCART cable or HDMI in or all these other things. There's something called an OSSC, which is Open Source Scan Converter. I don't remember that. That's kind of like your middle ground connector to sit between the system and your HD TV. And then you have the end all be all, which is called the FrameMeister. And if anybody here has ever watched Classic Game Room, you know that Mark is a huge fan of the FrameMeister, and it is awesome watching him say it. So,
shout outs to Mark.
Yeah. I miss that show being on YouTube, man. That was
I miss
great
it
stuff.
so much.
Then there's a lot of solutions that have been coming out for just doing HDMI, basically taking the existing output from the system, converting it into an HDMI cable, and you connect it straight to your TV. Now, Will, you have some experience with some of these. A couple months back, you had purchased a Saturn, you had purchased a Dreamcast, and we had a big game day. And you had a similar issue. How the hell do I get this connected to my 1080p flat screen?
Yes, I knew right away, like upon buying those consoles, that they were obviously going to come with like the original composite cables. Like, I was lucky if I was going to get something S-Video or whatever. So since I knew that kind of going in, I obviously just kind of sort of blindly just bought like some random third-party like HDMI like converter cable things. And one of them I remember was good. I believe it was for the Saturn. And it was the one for the Dreamcast that was kind of wonky because we discovered that there was some like weird like artifacts and stuff on the screen.
Right.
So I'm happy with the one for the Saturn, even though it came from like a weird like I think it came from like a car dealership or like a one of those. It came from if you go to like Best Buy or like a car dealership, they might have like a shop where they do like upgrades to like sound systems and stuff.
Yeah.
Like. They have one of those at Best Buy. I don't know if they have one anymore, but they used to like many years ago. And I remember actually seeing this brand called Extreme Cables with like an X and, super cheesy third-party looking brand. And I believe that was the same brand that makes the one that I have for the Saturn. And it actually works really well. It's kind of a complex hookup. Like there's kind of like a weird box and a couple cables going in and out of it and whatnot. But, the real reality of this is that there isn't any kind of straight up seamless process, like where it's just
No.
like in out. Like it's usually some kind of weird box, like kind of like the Retro Tink, or something that looks like it's gonna fucking fall apart. Kind of like the one that I have for the Dreamcast. Like if you push too hard on one side, like the whole other side just like kind of pops out.
Yeah.
And you're just like, huh, like it would have been nice if they just kind of glued this.
Right. Exactly. I think with the Dreamcast, I think you ended up with Pound HDMI, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think so.
they have that company. The name is Pound, Pound. They have released a whole line of HDMI cables for I think just about every single system at this point, and they're inexpensive. They work, but they have issues with them. And one of the main issues that we experienced with yours, Will, was in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. There was a ton of artifacting, especially when there was any kind of like fireball on the screen or any kind of special move where your character would essentially just turn into blocks of static in like digital pixelation. The rest of the stage would be fine, but that animation was having some serious issues. And I think with the Pound cables, it's really going to kind of depend on what the game is, because the Dreamcast is a unique beast. It supports VGA out. And not many systems do. And not all games are compatible with VGA out.
No, they're not. And I remember back when, the Dreamcast was out and very prevalent, one of my buddies actually had like an HDMI, or not an HDMI converter. He had the VGA cable.
Yep.
And he had it hooked up, I think, to like a computer monitor, which, obviously makes sense because back then everybody was using like the VGA like port for like their monitor setup.
Right.
So I just remember it looking really good, man. And like even back then, like it just worked so well. And like you said, it's because it really truly supported it.
Right. And that's really the thing. I'm trying to find a list of games that are actually compatible with the VGA cable, or I'm not sure if I'm able to. I'll look around on that, later on. But okay. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Marvel vs. Capcom is one of those games that has issues with VGA.
Yes. Yes.
Now, it doesn't mean that you're out of luck. There are other solutions to this. There's a company called HD Retrovision, which makes premium cables designed specifically for these systems. There is, like, for example, you can get component for the Super Nintendo, and it doesn't require any modding. It just takes the existing signal, and these are high-quality, well-made cables. They're going to cost you, but it's going to make basically the system put out a signal that's going to be compatible, lag-free with your television. Now, if you take that component out and hook it up to your Retro Tink and you run the Retro Tink to HDMI, you're going to be just fine. And I'm looking at their site now. They don't have anything for the Dreamcast, but they do have something for the Saturn. And basically, it's a converter for the Saturn wire to connect to their Genesis plug. So you kind of have to jump through a couple hoops to get it to work. But then if you have a Sega Genesis component, or just Sega Genesis in general, now you have something that's going to be compatible with, component out for that. And now that I'm looking at the Genesis thing, apparently this is also compatible with TurboGrafx. So like, oh fuck, now I got to buy that. So you can see like how this just kind of goes in this whole like it just snowballs, man. It just really snowballs. But HD Retrovision is a great site. They have products that I've heard fantastic things about. If you're willing to spend the money, you can go over to them, and they sell through a site called CastlemaniaGames.com. I'm looking at their wires now. Their Saturn port adapter is sold out. There's no price on that. But they have, let's see here. Well, they sell, they have a pre-order up for basically PS2, PS3 component cables for $30, which isn't bad if you need a component cable for your PlayStation. Those are really hard to find. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Genesis component cables, $63. So they're not cheap, but this is not a like if you're going to do this, you're going to want to do it right. Like otherwise, you're going to spend the money twice, 3 times over. And now we're talking about like modding. That is a whole nother thing too. The Dreamcast has a ton of mods that are available for it. There are some mods that actually like remove the disk drive out completely, and then you can put all of the games onto an SD card. So if you're having trouble tracking down your games, or you have physical copies but they're suffering from disk rot or whatever the case is, or you're just a freaking pirate, you can download a bunch of Dreamcast ISOs, throw them on this SD card, and now you have built into your Dreamcast, essentially an unlimited supply of games. And then I even found there's something called DC HDMI, which is a direct mod to the video board on the Dreamcast. So you need to know how to solder, or you need to find somebody that will do the mod for you. But it creates a legitimate HDMI port on the Dreamcast connected directly to the video card. So you're running an HDMI cable right out of the back of the system into your TV. It's as pure as it gets. That's worth checking out if you know how to solder, if you're comfortable with it, or you're willing to pay somebody to do the work for you, because there are people that do and will. And then let's see here. As far as like resources go, I would say check out on YouTube. There's three main sources that I would check out. Retro RGB. That guy does a ton of videos. He has a website with a ton of articles. He's probably the most famous one. I don't really spend a lot of time watching his stuff. I think his YouTube videos are kind of boring personally. But I would recommend My Life in Gaming, and I would recommend Modern Vintage Gamer. Both of those are very thorough, very educated. They're covering the retro scene, the retro modern scene, I guess I would call it. I think better than just about everybody. And, years and years of experience making these videos. They know their shit. They do comparison. My Life in Gaming, their videos are frequently 30 to 60 minutes long, because they'll hook up these systems. They'll say, all right, we have this new plug or this new wire we want to try out. We're going to hook it up and we're going to test it against every other single component that's available for the system. So they'll throw in the RetroTink and stack it up against the FrameMeister, the OSSC, the pound cable, and they'll show you side-by-side comparisons of the same frames. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the brief kind of announcement I made before we dived into this, or dove into it rather, is this is such a huge subject, and it takes a lot of research, and like Drew's saying here, like you really have to do the research on every single one of these things if you really want to make the right decision. Otherwise, you're going to end up doing like a shotgun approach, and you're going to buy like a bunch of different converters and shit,
right?
And you basically just have to run like a trial and error. Obviously, the only other option is to go super old school, kind of like I did, except I didn't do this. You'd have to buy an old school TV, hook it up the old way, and then you're going to have like pretty much a flawless experience.
Yeah. I mean, if you want the most true to form experience with these systems, there's no replacing a CRT. But the fact of the matter is, it's just not practical in today's environment, especially when people are spending the money to buy these, 65-inch 4K televisions. You want to play your games on them. I totally get that. I'm the same way. I have a CRT that's been sitting in my room here for months because, we bought a new TV. I decided to move the flat screen into the game room to save some space. And I just, I'm waiting for an opportunity to give this TV to my buddy. I have somebody that already claimed it, but, it's a matter of getting him over to my house so that the two of us can lift the fucking thing, because it's fucking heavy,
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I think, the end-all be-all of this, like a kind of a closing statement, at least for me, would be do the research, because I think it is kind of worth exploring some of these items, and it's kind of cool too. Like you get kind of like giddy about it. You're like, ooh, like this one looks really good, and like a lot of people don't have it. Like it's kind of like the RetroTink. Like that's definitely something that like most gamers aren't going to know what the fuck that is at all.
Right. Most people that are into this sort of thing are going to take the minis, are going to plug them into their TV and call it a day. You know, and for me and for Joe and a lot of people, I think there really is something romantic. It's like playing vinyl. You have the turntable, you take the vinyl out, you put it down, you listen to it, it sounds different. It's a whole experience. And for me, when I really want to get that retro experience, there's nothing better than hooking up the system with the old school wires and doing it right. And it's just really difficult to get the best picture possible on, flat screen TV with modern technology, especially considering now that they're not even including component cables or component inputs on these TVs anymore. It's HDMI or nothing. My TV that I have in my living room doesn't have component inputs. It's 4 HDMIs and that's it. So for me, if I ever want to hook up my original Xbox, I got to grab the RetroTink.
Yeah, I think the next step for TVs, and they're probably not going to do this because even though like there's a big audience for what we're talking about here, it's not big enough. No. I think for TV companies like Samsung and Sony to make like an input like retro. No. Like you have inputs for like theater and like sports and all that shit, but they're not going to make one for retro. They have one for game, which is quite common because like these companies know that we're all playing like Xbox and PS4 and all this shit because they know that that's functional.
Right.
But I think if you had the room, like if you had a man cave and you wanted to go and spend like, I don't know, $200 on like an old school TV, I would say do it. But most people are living a very minimalistic lifestyle, which is completely respectable and often desired. So, do the research, check out these cables, take Drew's advice.
Yeah. And just one closing statement too, real quick. That Joe asked if this is kind of a good time to pick up a scaler or is it better to wait for the next big thing? And that's a really tough question to answer because, with the cost of all these components going down and 3D printing being so affordable at this point, it is easier than ever for somebody who has a little bit of electrical knowledge to design a new circuit board and make something that's going to improve, on the last thing. The RetroTink is one guy that builds them. He orders the circuit boards from China, but he puts the rest of it together himself. And it looks cheap, but it's really well made. It's high quality, it's sturdy, it doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart. So these are the types of things that really, it's constantly evolving. And I might tell you to buy something today, and then 2 weeks from now, something new might come out. But at the same time, you can't constantly have this fear of missing out, You can't have this hesitation. If you do your research and you find something that's going to work for you, don't be afraid to buy into it. It's otherwise you're just going to be kind of waiting. And then one thing there's all these other things. I'm sorry to cut you off, but like there's this whole system that's coming out soon too. What the hell's the name of it? It's like modular, and you can buy like it comes like stock with an HDMI out and is compatible with all the disc-based games, and you just put it in, and I think it uses FPGA to emulate from the disc, so you can play Saturn games, I can play Turbo Duo games, you can play PlayStation games on it, and it has like a Bluetooth controller, and then if you want to do the cartridges, you just literally like connect this thing to it, and bam, now you have a Super Nintendo or whatever, and like there's so many different options out there now. So I guess what I'm just saying is take a look around, because I can't keep track of everything. I did my best to try to research as much as possible, but as you noticed, I'm just rambling at this point.
Well, it's such a big subject, like I said, that it's hard not to. Like, and you're passionate about it way more than I am. But one thing I was going to mention is I think that I realized during this conversation that there's two types of gamers in this particular equation. So you have the people that might just want to get like a hookup just to get it to work on their HD TV, and then you have the people like you and me that are trying to do that and get the best picture quality. And I think there's a difference between the two, because I don't think everybody that has like say a Dreamcast is looking to get the ultimate picture on their HD TV. They just want to be able to hook it up to it.
Right.
And I think that you got to establish which person you are, because you're not going to fall into both. Well, actually you would, because that's me and you. But you might fall into just one bracket or the other. Like maybe you want the best picture and you don't give a fuck how it's done. Or maybe you don't want the best picture, you just want something that's going to enable you to actually hook it up properly.
Right.
So once you can figure that out, I think it helps with the process as well, because you can go so far down that rabbit hole, like you said, with this. And if you don't want to go down that far and picture quality is not a huge deal to you, just get something that's going to let you fucking play it on your 60-inch or whatever.
Yeah. I think that sums it up well. But Joe and anybody else that's interested, swing on by the Discord room. Let's talk about this kind of stuff, because it is endlessly fascinating. It is cool as hell. And I don't play, I don't tinker with my car. I tinker with fucking old ass video games. Like this is my kind of shit. So, and like I said before too, I don't know everything. There are so many other options out there that I may not have even heard of because it's such a diverse community. And, it's easy to kind of look at the big picture, but it's really hard to kind of narrow down to one thing. Like for me, like I don't collect for just one system. I collect for multiples. So I easily miss shit all the time. I think I'm done. Oh god, I need a cigarette.
Yeah, right. You don't even smoke though.
I don't. Oh god. So yeah, let's talk about that more in the Discord at this point though, because I just ate up like 45 minutes of the show.
Sure.
Will, take it from here.
Yeah. Let me see here. I was actually just pulling up Trello just to see what else we had on the docket here. Bear with me, folks. All right, so let's. Why don't we move on to the Dark Souls Compendium?
Yeah, tell me about this. This thing looks cool.
Yeah, it's not a huge topic here, but it's definitely something worth mentioning. Everybody knows that I love my art books and collectible books and things of that nature, and I've been waiting a long time for this. Future Press has unfortunately been known to kind of have big delays on their products, and a lot of times it's because they have to import it from Germany. So with this particular guide, or not guide, rather, the compendium, they went through some serious shit. I don't know like the whole story, but like they had delays in customs, and then like it was delayed on for other reasons. And I thought I was getting this thing at the end of the year at one point.
Wow.
And I pre-ordered it back in like March or whatever. Some people actually pre-ordered back in January, and like people on Future Press's Twitter were just pissed beyond belief, man. They were like, oh my God, like this is ridiculous. Like you can't just, they were just going off, right?
Right.
And I was starting to like go off too, because normally I'm not that consumer that would do that, but I was actually getting really frustrated that they kept delaying it. And, I got a delivery date of like September or something. I was like, come on, man, I just want the book. Like you guys keep saying it's done. It's hitting Amazon's like, warehouse and all this stuff, and it's hitting retailers, but like where the fuck is it? I finally get it. Everything was fine. I guess like Amazon was just, going through normal protocol. And this thing's amazing. It's definitely already one of my most cherished books that I own out of my entire collection. That's saying a lot because I do have a lot, but it's just extremely high quality. It's one of those slipcase kind of situations where it's got like a hardcover slipcase and the book kind of slides out nicely. It smells amazing. It's got that awesome like new book smell.
I
like,
love that.
Perfect like fresh pages of like ink and all that shit. And basically what it is it's an encyclopedia basically for all three games, all of the newest remastered versions. So they've paid attention to like new dialogue and new upgrades and new DLC and stuff. So it's got everything from character dialogues to item descriptions to weapon descriptions. It's just everything you could ever want to know, from lore to bosses and areas, maps. It's everything Dark Souls all in one book, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I highly recommend. I've recommended it so many times before, but please check out Future Press. They're an incredible company. I know strategy guys are kind of like a dying breed of video game sort of collectibles and something that you would want to purchase, but it's they're one of the last standing companies that just makes an excellent guide. And just excellent books overall. So yeah, definitely check them out. And if you're not into Dark Souls, take a look anyway. Take a look at our Instagram. I did post a couple pictures on there, and I'm going to be trying to do more of that for the fans, so they can kind of see some of the things that we both own and collect.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Future Press site now, and like, they definitely seem to have like a type of game, but it's pretty cool. All the Dark Souls games are here. Bloodborne is here. Deus Ex, Killzone, Vanquish, Bayonetta. Like these look nice.
Yeah. they've done like random stuff too. Like they actually have one for Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yep, I see that, and they did one for Frozen Wilds as well too. Although that's a digital version, I guess.
Yeah, and some of them are actually really hard to find. Apparently, like there's they did one for Bloodborne: The Old Hunters, which is a collector's DLC guide. That one they had a very limited run. They're also known for doing limited runs of books. So most of the time when they announce a guide, you got to get your hands on this thing quick because they go fast. And then when they go fast and they're sold out, people will try and resell them.
Right.
And sometimes they try to resell them for ridiculous amounts. Like if
Really?
you try to find the one for Bayonetta, I'm pretty sure it's like well into the hundreds. It's probably like $300-$400. I think I've seen it even higher than that.
Wow.
They've got one for Portal 2, Deus Ex. Like I have two for Dark Souls. I have like the original one, and then they came out with another one just for like the remastered game. So like they don't mess around. They just make super high quality, very thorough books.
Yeah.
And even for like The Last Guardian, I'm pretty sure it's not even a strat guide. It's just like a book on the game. So sometimes they don't always make a strat guide. It's just like a book on whatever game they want to feature.
Very nice. Very cool.
Yeah, love them.
I'll have to check it out. I don't know if I'm going to be picking up a strategy guide for Horizon at this point, but I mean, I do love the art book that you got me. Although I'm waiting to beat the game to like really spend some time with that. I don't want to find any spoilers.
Yeah, that'll be nice to kind of like sit back on the couch and just kind of page through that thing on a Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. Crack open a beer or a glass of wine or something, and just relax.
Just vibe out to it. But yeah, that's the book. Very happy to have it.
Nice. Glad you got it finally.
Yeah, very happy to have it, man. It's just one of those things where, I unboxed it and I was just like, yes, my precious. And you definitely have that sort of Gollum moment with things like that.
Isn't that like the greatest feeling?
It is.
Like just to just, oh man, you've been waiting for something for so long and then you finally get it. I felt that same way about my RetroTink when that came in. Like I had been waiting months for it and months for it and months for it. And finally it came in. I was like,
dude, I can just feel it in my chest. Like when you see that Amazon box, like at your doorstep, and you're just like, I know what's in that bad boy. And you get that, like, all of a sudden your horrible day at work just turns into like, you know what? I'm fucking fine. I'm fine. I got that Amazon box waiting for me. Like your whole day just brightens up.
Yeah, man.
Even if it's for fucking 3 hours, man, it's all about those little doses of happiness.
We need them. We need them because life is miserable.
It certainly can be.
Yeah. Last topic of the show. I took a little swing by one of my favorite friendly game stores, and Retro Games Plus over on the Post Road in Orange, and I picked up one of your favorite games, Will.
I still can't believe this. What did you get?
Mission Impossible for the Nintendo 64, complete in box, including the manual, the poster, the game. The box is in amazing condition. $15.99. Which,
I think looking back on it now, it's a pretty respectable price considering it is CIB and you've got the poster and the poster looks untouched.
Yeah.
Like a lot about this pickup is just really mint, quite literally.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I'm checking out price charting here, which is kind of my go-to for a lot of this stuff. And their average for a complete edition is $12.33.
Okay.
So and that averages eBay, Amazon, and their own store online. And, I probably could have gotten the game cheaper if it was something that I really wanted. It was very much an impulse purchase. I did not go to the store with the intention of buying. I mean, I didn't even plan on going to the store in the first place. We were out in the Post Road doing some errands, going to the mall, going to the stores, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I just spent like the past 2 hours watching Nikki look at shoes. I'm going to go to the fucking game store. and she's cool with it, like she don't care. So we went into RGP and like, I hadn't bought anything in a while, and like I so infrequently get to go to like actual retro game stores that like every time I go there, I walk in the door and I'm like, I don't know what I want to buy.
Yeah.
Like I just have that moment of like analysis paralysis or something where like there's so much stuff and you just have no idea. Like,
well, that's kind of the point, I think, in a lot of ways. Like, it's nice to go in blind.
But at the same time, too, it's like I go in like saying, okay, I really want to buy a retro game today. And then I can't tell you how many times I've walked out of those stores not buying anything. And yeah, that's great for my wallet, but it's also depressing in a way, because you get so excited about like going to the store that you haven't been to in a while. And then you just don't buy anything. And I remember one guy saying that, every time he goes to the store, he decides, okay, today I'm going to buy a game for my Super Nintendo. Today I'm going to buy a game for my Nintendo. Today I'm going to buy a game for my Genesis or whatever. And every time he goes to the store, he's like, okay, this is what I'm buying today. I don't know what I'm buying, but this is the system I'm buying for. And that kind of helps keep him on track because you never really know what you're going to see. But yeah, man, like I know you've talked so fondly about this game, and for that price, I just I
think fondly might be putting it a little bit too much sugar on there, but a
little bit.
Yeah, I'm actually watching a little bit of a long play right now, and my God, does it look bad. But like I said, it was like a Man of Steel thing for me, man. Like I wanted to love the movie, and I wanted to love this game, and I just knew that it was such trash, but I just played it anyway because I hyped it up so much, and I had spent the money to, to obviously buy the game and play it and try and enjoy it, and I somehow got through the whole thing, and
you did beat it.
Oh yeah, I definitely beat this game. I remember actually playing it quite a bit, so perhaps I was in denial for much longer than anticipated. But God damn, it looks so bad. It's just so bad. But yeah, I hope that you get to load this up, man. I don't know whether it's going to be together or you're going to do this on your own, but I can't wait for like somewhat of a short review.
I would love to try to hold out for you and have you here when I do finally, pop this in for the first time. If there was a way for us to capture it on camera, that would be great. Either on a stream or something. I don't know. But my schedule's going to be changing soon, so we'll have to try to see what we can work out before that happens. Because I bought this to experience what you went through, but I also bought this so that you can experience what you went through.
Yeah, which was I don't even remember if it was hell or if it was like joy or a combination of both. But
we gotta find out.
Yeah, my goodness, that poster, you're gonna have to share it on the Instagram, man. Like because if that's not like a spitting image of Tom Cruise back in his heyday, I don't know what is. It looks exactly like him. Yeah, and trust me, folks, I am being more than sarcastic.
Oh my God, the box art is so fucking lazy.
It's so lazy, dude. So is the menu of this game. Wait till you see the menu, dude. It's so awkward and lazy.
I need to like bust out my DSLR and take like actual pictures of the box because like especially like the front of the box is like the laziest fucking art. It's just this picture of the globe but red with the words Mission Impossible in front of it, and it says expect the impossible. But then like if you look at the sides of the box, they have like really fucking bad in-game artwork. Like in the different, like all the Nintendo games or the N64 games, like the spine of the boxes shows stuff in different colors. So like one edge is gold, one edge is red, one's like a blue, and one's green. And then you have your back of the box art. And like all it is I assume Tom Cruise's face. I don't even know. This is like the worst smile or grin or like grimace. I don't know if he's like getting ready for the dentist or what. Like oh my God, this is like the worst. And then like on the side of the spine, or where the opening flaps are, like you can see like this dead stare with like a a headset mic in front of his mouth, and like there's all this like stubble, and I guarantee you none of that stubble's actually in the game.
Yep, probably not. I mean, it's just the bad thing about this game is it's such a disgrace to the movie because, like, I love the first movie.
Oh, it was
and
so
trust
much fun.
me, it has its flaws. Like, there's definitely some moments that are just like, oh my God, that's so fucking stupid. But, like, it's such a charming, really just fun movie. And it was such a classic, like, sort of mid-90s movie, too.
Yeah.
Where movies were just kind of recovering from, like, being kind of terrible, but also being, like, kind of getting really good. And I don't know, man. That movie holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I don't know. I gotta try and figure out when I'm gonna fire this up. Is this something that you guys would like to see played? Let us know, because I've been considering trying to figure out how to do a stream for the podcast. I don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in or not.
Yeah, it's definitely something we're thinking about, because that would be fun.
Yeah, I think so. Just us playing bad games.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we pretty much got everything on our list today.
Yeah, I think so.
So, thanks everybody for listening. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already doing so on Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Jesus Christ, that whole thing about the retro hookups like wore me out. Anywhere you can find your podcasts, you can find us there. Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. Find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at WDGRPodcast, at WDGRPodcast. I'm on social media at ScienceStorm. Will, how can they find you?
Will_gear.
And I just want to thank everybody who contributed to today's episode with the mailbag. Great questions, guys. Keep them coming. If you want to be a part of that, swing on by our Discord room. The link is in the show notes. And it's been a while since I've thrown that out on Facebook and Twitter, so maybe I'll do that as well, too. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Check out our Instagram and Facebook. Just keep an eye on social media, because we're going to be very active on there going forward. Like we said, we kind of took a little bit of a break, but we're back. And other than that, jump in the Discord for sure.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.